We're back, ladies and gentlemen. It's Saturday, April 5th, 2025. I'm Andrew Duhan. Joining me is my electric co-host, Jeff Benedict, former radio host for 92.9 The Game in Atlanta. He won't say it, but I consider him a Falcons insider. He'll always say he's not. He wore many hats: professor, coach, SDK security guard. There's nothing that Jeff can't do. We've got a packed agenda today, so let's dive right in. And before we do so, if you want to find us on Twitter, at JMB_CU16 is Jeff's handle. My handle is at Andrew Duhan. And we just got Spotify up and running too. So go look for Flight Path on Spotify if that's the way you like to consume your content. So let's dive straight in. Jeff, you dropped a bombshell on Twitter, or X, I should say, I think yesterday or the day before, where you said that the Falcons might have interest in trading up to the Jets pick at 7 overall, but the cost might be our 2026 first pick. So, Jeff, take it away.
Yeah, I mean, potentially, right? Like that's, and if you guys pay attention, like I don't drop something every day, right? Like I just don't. So if I don't have any information, I'm not going to post anything. And I got a text message yesterday from my guy. And if you remember back in episode 2, I told you I hadn't talked to him in a couple of weeks, so we hadn't, and we caught up this week. And I got a text Friday morning. He said, "Yo, I got some news," and I was like, what's going on? And so he said, "Hey, man, we've reached out to the Jets to start a dialogue about potentially trading up to 7. In order to jump the Saints and the Panthers for Jalen Walker." At this point, I think the team has kind of almost come to terms that getting a guy like Micah Parsons probably isn't going to happen. Dallas seems content in stretching this thing out as long as possible. This week you heard Jerry Jones take shots at Micah Parsons' agent, and basically calling one of the most powerful agents in football a no name, right? Like that's but that's Jerry Jones' ego getting in the way, right? And so that drama seems to going to be taking longer than they were hoping, and who knows what's going on with Trey Hendrickson at this point. Hendrickson has come out and said, I'm not trying to be the highest paid. I'm just trying to be reflective of what I've given this franchise over the last few years of my level of play. And he's talked about how there has been no communication, and then of course that owner, whatever her name is, and she's not important enough for me to remember, basically came out and was pretty disparaging to him, if you want to be completely honest. So I think Terry Fontenot and the franchise understand that things are not going to go the way that they wanted them to. And so now they're kind of looking at switching up kind of their draft philosophy, right? And, take it for what it's worth. If you believe it, believe it. If you don't. I get people, are kind of edgy because I'm not telling you something is going to happen. And obviously, this is going to be a draft night trade if it happens, because they're not trying to give the Saints and the Panthers time to jump ahead of them, right? Like that's not what they're trying to do. And so, if this does happen, it will be a draft night trade when 7 Jets are on the board. And for the Falcons to jump in there and take it. And look, last year, and people may not know, or they didn't pay attention or whatever it is, but last year the Falcons tried to jump back into the first round to go get lots to, right? And here's what they offered last year to do that. They offered the Jets, the Raiders, and the Broncos last year's second round pick, 2025 and 2026 first rounds, to jump back in there to try to grab him. They stopped making phone calls when the Colts came on the clock because the Colts made it known that was going to be their selection with him on the board, and they were not going to give that up. So, for me, when I look at this, there's very little difference between Jalen Walker and Abdul Carter. Everybody wants to keep calling Jalen Walker an off-ball linebacker. That dude is going to be a very good edge rusher, and he has much better edge rushing skills than he does as an off the ball linebacker. And I think there are a lot of people who are being really short-sighted with his skill set. And for me, if you have an opportunity, and let's look at the way that Terry fucking Fontenot has drafted in the first round these last few years. Or is like, it hasn't been very good, right? Well, I can't say that. He's drafted very well when it comes to offensive players. Defensive players, a lot left be desired, right? So to me, if he wants to trade away 2026, I can't say he hasn't done. Let me take back that comment. He's been very good with his first round picks, but they've all been offensive, right? Obviously, Bijan Robinson is
all top 10.
Yeah, all top 10, all very good. Obviously, Penix, we don't know yet. He has shown flashes of being very, very good. So we're all excited about that. But Fontenot's defensive picks have not panned out. And we all know they've decided not to take a whiff at some of the best players in the draft defensively that have gone on to win Super Bowls for other teams. So to me, if he's willing to give up 2026 first round to go get a guy like Jalen Walker, who most people have as 1B in this draft as a pass rusher behind Abdul Carter, why would you not give that up? Like, what good does it do to hold on to something when you potentially go out and get a guy who can change the direction of your franchise? And I really believe that's what Jalen Carter is. I'm wearing Clemson shit, y'all. I'm not a Georgia Bulldog. I'm not one of these guys that has this really weird affinity for wanting the Falcons to draft Georgia players. I want them to go out and get the best damn guys available. And to me, that's defense, right? And to me, Jalen Carter makes the most sense because you're not getting into the top 3 to get Abdul Carter. And if I'm being honest, this is not going to be very popular. I would probably still take Jalen Walker over Abdul Carter. I'm not sold on that. I'm not sold on him. I'm just not sold on him. And take it with a grain of salt, right? Like, I made fun of myself this week because I completely whipped on Jared Verse, right? Like, so take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, like Jalen Walker, like I watched him this year in person a couple times, watched him on TV a lot. I think that dude's a stud. And yeah, he's 245 pounds, which I know kind of concerns a lot of people. That's to me, that dude's not the real deal. And again, I think he's a much better pass rusher than anybody's going to give him credit for. And I think he's a better pass rusher than he is an off-the-ball linebacker, which he's still very, very good at.
So a couple of things here, and a lot to react to in that opening statement, Jeff. But first, I mean, Latu giving up a second, a 2025 first and 2026 first, that is insane. I mean, we must have been sky high on the guy. Off the bat, do you know if they had more faith in Lot? Like, are they just as excited with Jalen Walker as they were with Latu last year?
That I don't know. I can't answer that because I don't know. And we both know I'm never going to make up shit just to make it up. Yeah. I don't know if they're that excited. But I mean, Terry Fontenot has never traded back up into the first round, right, to go get a guy. I know under Caleb McGarry they did, but that wasn't Fontenot's draft.
That was TD.
Right. So he's never traded back up. He's to go get a guy. So that tells me that he's really excited about Jalen Walker, right? Like that's, and I think the Falcons are doing their due diligence. I think they're doing a really good job of these private workouts and looking at guys that they're going to potentially draft all over the board. We obviously know they had a private workout with Banks, and that really pissed off a lot of people. But I'll be honest, if Banks had fallen to 15, that to me is a no-brainer. But ultimately, they want to get back. They want to make a difference maker on defense, and they really believe Jalen Walker's that guy. So, when you pop on his tape, that dude sticks out. Like, it's hard not to put on tape and not find him. Your eyes go to him immediately, right? Last year was really. It was really, you're looking at 11, 12, and 13 last year between the Jets, the Broncos, and the Raiders. The Jets, they took Fashanu out of Penn State last year, really wanted to protect Aaron Rodgers, which is why they didn't jump on the trade last year, which makes sense. Older quarterback, you want to make sure he's protected. Denver didn't budge because they wanted Bo Nix, and they knew Nix was not going to last much longer than he did. So that makes sense. And then you can't fault the Raiders. I mean, Brock Bowers, to me, is a generational tight end. And the fact that he lasted outside the top 10 to me is still ridiculous because if you're asking me, and I've said this many times, Brock Bowers should have been a 2-time Heisman Trophy winner. Like, he was the best player in college football his sophomore and junior year in college. And so, you don't trade that out. And then we all know, obviously, the Saints were never going to trade with us to do a damn thing anyway. So They tried their best to get back in there. And to me, last year, if you were willing to give up 2 draft picks to go, 2 first-round picks to go up and get a guy like Latu, then to me, it's a no-brainer that you'd be willing to give up 2026. Because if you're any good, let's think about this though, right? Let's say you get that defense, you get that difference maker. You're better on the defensive side because offense should not be an issue this year, right? So let's eliminate that portion of this. Your defense gives you something. You make the playoffs. You're not looking at a top 15 pick, people. You're looking at like a mid-20s fucking pick. Why would you not give up a mid-20s pick to go get a guy that has the potential that Jalen Walker has? Like that to me is a no-brainer. We're not talking about giving up a top 5 2026. We're talking hopefully what pans out to be a mid-20s, late 20s pick. And you absolutely do that 7 days out of the week.
If Walker is as good as you're making him out to be, absolutely go for it. Unload the clip. But I mean, giving up that 2026 first, like, I don't know that we're one dynamic playmaker away. And it's hard to imagine that one linebacker, or maybe if we play him on the D line, like you're suggesting, for me, it's just hard to envision that guy is going to take our defense to that next level. So for me, I mean, I lean towards stand your ground, keep your pick. And if Walker's probably not falling from the way you're making it sound, but could we get Mykel Williams? Could we draft a D tackle to replace Grady Jarrett? Because we know that Onyemata's not getting any younger, and he's not, to be honest with you, he's not looking all that great either. Like, do we stay there and get Harmon or Kenneth Grant? Like, those are guys I would like on the D-line as well. But, Jeff, if you're right, and this Walker kid is going to be an electric pass rusher, I'm with you. To me, it seems like a big gamble.
But that's not even my point, though, right? Like, I'm not telling you that you're one player away. What I'm telling you is when you look at it, yes, you're having to replace Grady Jarrett. Yes, you have a hole there. You bring in a guy like Lloyd, right? Like, you've got some guys coming back who were injured last year. What I'm telling you is this, is if your defense improves at all, you're in the playoffs, right? Improves at all, you're in the playoffs. You now no longer have essentially a top 20 pick, right? Again, we're not talking about a top 5 pick in 2026. And if we are, everybody's getting fired anyway, right? Like, that's where we're at. So it's not like I'm saying, hey, give up a top 10 pick for, give up a top 10 pick for this kid. I'm saying when you look at what you've got, who you've signed, the transactions you've made during free agency, you look at some of the guys that you have coming back off of last year's, guys that were drafted last year that were injured. God, I can't even think of his name right now. The kid out of Washington. Yeah, right. Like, and I don't expect him to come in. Like I've already said, 2026 is going to be a year that we'll actually see what he's about, because 2025 is going to be a year where he's, filling out that injury and getting confidence back. But my entire point is this, is that if you get something from this defense, you're in the playoffs, right? And if that's the case, when you look at where you're at from a playoff perspective, and you look at what your draft pick is going to be, you're no longer you're not even in the teens anymore. You're in the 20s. And for me, a guy like Walker with the upside that he has, which is crazy because last year everybody was all in on fucking Turner out of Alabama because of his ceiling and his turn, right? Walker, to me, has just as good of an upside. And people are like, hell no, we're not giving up a 25th overall pick for him. Hell yes, you do. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just going off the barrage of absolute ridiculous comments I got yesterday. For me, you have that upside. If you have the opportunity to go up and get a guy like that who potentially is that dynamic of a playmaker on that side of the ball, you go get it. If it pans out, great. If it doesn't, nothing we can do about that. but at least, you can look back and say, you know what, we identified the guy that we wanted. It's a guy who, by all intents and purposes, is a top 10 talent in this draft, consensus wise. Yeah, I'm not mad at you, Andrew. Like, I think Mikael Williams, I think, is another guy who absolutely has a ton of potential. Is he as good as Jalen Walker? I don't know. I don't think he is. I think he's kind of that. He's obviously to me, he's a top 10 talent. But I think Abdul Carter and Jalen Walker, to me, are the upper echelon of that top 10.
Yeah, and if you believe that, if you believe Walker and Carter are in that class, then this trade makes a lot more sense. A lot of people that were kind of going crazy on X2 when you posted that were like, look at this trade value chart. This says that if you give up the first and the second, and you give up the 2026 first, if you look at those like numerical values assigned to the draft picks, we're getting crushed in the trade. And that might be true on average in a typical draft. But in this particular draft, the number one thing you hear echoed is that there isn't a lot of S tier, top tier talent, right? So when you want a top 10 pick in a draft that maybe, what is it, Carter, Travis Hunter, like those are probably the two guys that really stick out in this draft. If Jalen Walker is in that category, then yes, you overpay in a draft like this to go get that guy. I have no problem with giving up the value of it. My thing is, do you give up that 2025 first, 2026 first, and 2025 second, and instead of getting a rookie who might be great and he'll be on a rookie deal, but instead, do you get the surefire thing? Do you go for Hendrickson one more time? It seems like that might be off the table. Maybe we offer that and the Bengals are just being stubborn about it. But I rather have a surefire thing if we're giving up all that draft capital, but I do recognize that will cost a lot more money.
Yeah, and I think you actually bring up a really interesting piece of that, right? Like, if you're willing to give up 2026 first to go draft a young guy like Jalen Walker, why is that not on the table for a guy like Trey Hendrickson? Right. And I've said that, but again, you get the same feedback from our fan base. Hell no, we're not giving up a first pick for a guy who's a first round pick for a guy who's 31. Right. So, like, this fan base to me is really fickle. And it's what I absolutely don't like about this fan base, if I'm being honest. Like, you want to go win a Super Bowl, but you don't want to do the shit it takes to go win the Super Bowl. And sometimes you have to take fucking chances in order to get to that goal. Right. Like, sometimes you have to take those chances and hope they work out. Sometimes they
absolutely.
do, sometimes they don't.
Yeah. And the thing, the other question, and I don't want to get hung up on this the whole time, but like the other question I have for you is, given that Terry Fontenot, was 80% chance he was going to get fired this offseason, right? Like, does he even have the leash to touch the 2026 first round pick? Like, could Arthur Blank and Rich McKay be like, nope, you're staying where you are, you're not touching the future first round pick?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen that. I got that question a few times yesterday. He has the job, right? And ultimately, if you're going to hand tie a guy to not do his job, why do you have that guy around anymore then? Right. So for me, that's to me, I would just, for me, the assumption is, yeah, he has the ability to go do that, right? Because if you're going to keep me around, you're going to keep me in this position. Why would you then, tie my hands together behind my back and not allow me to go do that job? And for me, I just don't even think that's even a question. I think, he has the job. He is the general manager. This is what he's supposed to be doing. Because he's here, I'm under the assumption that he's allowed to do whatever it takes to make this club better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're like less than 3 weeks out, which is crazy. So definitely excited to see what we do there. If you guys missed Jeff's commentary of the draft last year, I'll upload some of the conversations we had before the 2024 draft. And I think you guys are going to really enjoy it because as early as March, Jeff was indicating that the Falcons were looking at a QB. Now, the QB we were interested in at that specific point in time was Drake May. But at that point, there was no indication that the Falcons were doing anything, going for anything other than Dallas Turner. Jeff was quick to shoot that down and said that they're looking at a QB. If Drake May is there, I gotta really stop doing that thumbs up thing. If Drake May is there, then they'll go for him at 8, but the pick will be Latu. And at that point, nobody even had Latu being the first defensive player coming off the board. So if you went on FanDuel, DraftKings, and saw Latu's odds for being the first defender off the board, he was plus 1,000 at the time that Jeff and I shot that podcast, meaning you put $100 down, you get $1,000, a 10x multiplier. Put some coin on that once Jeff said that. So then, obviously, Falcons taking a QB had the best odds in the world because no one thought that. Not even taking Drake May. If you just bet Falcons will draft a QB in the first round, it was plus 3,300. So, like, these are the things, like, Jeff has been, his information, even though he was on Latu last year and they were clearly interested, something went down after the fact where, it could have been as simple as maybe the Saints calling the Falcons, asking to trade up to get Penix and them getting worried. Maybe it was the Raiders, but they probably saw that if they take Latu at that 8th pick, there's no way they're getting Penix. So they gambled. They took the QB instead because it's always hard to trade up for the QB and prayed that they could trade back in. It failed, whatever. So watch for that. Watch for those older episodes on YouTube. I think you guys find that very informative. And with that, Jeff, let's move to the next topic. One of our legends officially retired yesterday. I didn't even know he wasn't retired. Julio Jones, who we drafted in 2011. I don't think he's played in like 2 seasons. So, 2-time first team All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler, 13,700 yards, 66 touchdowns, 914 receptions. Jeff, this guy's a lock for the Hall of Fame, right?
He better be a first ballot, right? Like, there better not, because what was it? Like, Andre Johnson wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer, which to me is mind blowing to me. Julio Jones to me is a first ballot. I mean, to me, he's a top 5 wide receiver all time. You can argue kind of where is he 4 or 5? Some may even have him at 3. I think he's a top 5 all time. He's an all time teammate. He epitomized what it meant to be a leader. He wasn't screaming, "Get me the damn ball." He didn't cry about the lack of touchdowns. And when you look, like, his numbers are absolutely insane. I tweeted this out yesterday. He's the only wide receiver in NFL history to have 6 straight seasons of at least 1,350 yards receiving. It would have been 6 straight of 1,400, but that 2019 season, he fell 6 yards short and didn't play like the last half or the final game of that season or something, whatever it was, which is absolutely insane to me that you put up those kind of numbers, right? But then you start looking at, like, who he played with, right? Like Michael Turner, so they're running the football a lot. You had Roddy White, who was a top 5 wide receiver in his time in that league. He was trying to fight Tony Gonzalez, an all-timer for catches, right? Like, he's got those 3 dudes on his roster, and he's still putting up numbers better than Mike Evans, who has always been the focal point of every offense the Bucs have ever had. So, when you look at what he did, he's never going to get the credit he deserves. And to me, the talent he played around, most guys are not putting up those kind of numbers. And so to me, when you look at the fact that you had Roddy White, Michael Turner, Tony Gonzalez, Harry Douglas,
Freeman.
like, you had a ton of dudes who were scoring touchdowns. So it wasn't about Julio. Julio's best trait was that he was the decoy that allowed everybody else to score touchdowns. And, yes, did he drop 1 or 2 in his career? Of course he did. But, to me, his catch in the Super Bowl is still the greatest catch in Super Bowl history. I don't give a shit what happened after that. Like, that was the game-winning catch. That body contour and control was absolutely mind-blowing. Like, you can't even dunk an Oreo and have that kind of body control. And this dude did it tightroping the sidelines with somebody draped all over him with essentially the Super Bowl on the line, right? I don't know how you're the Falcons and you don't put him in the Ring of Honor this year. Like, I don't know what your stipulations are, how long you have to wait. That dude is an all-timer now. Hell, did they put Matt Ryan in last year, or is he kind of on the ball next?
No,
They put him in
they got
last
him
year?
in. I think they got him in Thursday night when we played Tampa
Okay.
in that overtime game.
So, yeah, you absolutely have to do the same for Julio this year. Like, he has to go in your Ring of Honor this year. That dude's an all-timer. For him to do it on 404 Day here in Atlanta, even more right. Yeah, 5 years from now, his assets better be a first-round ballot. I don't give a damn who else is on that ballot. Julio Jones has to be, included in that class.
That's so cool that he
But
did it on 404. I didn't even realize. Go ahead.
did Matt Ryan officially retire at the beginning of last year?
He's eligible in 2029. So Julio's 2030.
Okay.
He'll
All
be
right.
eligible in 2029. So
I was just gonna say that would be some shit though if Julio pushed him out, right? Like, it came down to Julio and Julio pushed him out because that's more. And again, I don't know that Matt will be a first ballot. He should be, by the way. Matt Ryan to me is a first ballot Hall of Famer.
We'll get into that.
I don't know that he'll get in there because that 2029 class with Tom Brady and a lot of other dudes is going to be really packed. But to me, Matt Ryan's a first ballot Hall of Famer as well. So maybe 2030, you get Matt Ryan and Julio. You get two for the price of one that year. And I can promise you now, Canton would be overrun with Falcons fans if that actually happened.
Oh man, that would be so cool. And yeah, I don't know that Matt Ryan will be the first team All Pro, but first team first ballot Hall of Famer. But circling back to Julio, I mean, his two greatest catches were in the playoff games and obviously the Super Bowl we lost. I'm thinking about the San Francisco catch he had on the left sideline or whatever, where we had a blown lead. And obviously that catch in the Super Bowl was, I mean, when it happened and after we lost, like, I was just like, wow, that catch just went to waste. That would have been his signature moment. And it just sucks. Jeff, you put out a post earlier today on X where it's like Shanahan and DQ, they robbed Ryan and Julio of their rings. I mean, Julio's probably 90% chance first team, I keep saying first team, first ballot Hall of Famer, right? Had he had the ring, there's no quote. We're not having this discussion at all. And then Matt Ryan, you're putting the jacket on him, but there's a lot of people, and we'll get into that don't think that he's going to ever have that gold jacket on him. Had they won that Super Bowl, though, Matt Ryan probably first ballot, Julio 100%, no questions asked, first ballot.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, there's no doubt about that one. That Super Bowl changed both of their trajectories. Losing that Super Bowl, because even today, you still have morons who blame Matt Ryan for that loss, which is inexplicable to me. Your defense gave up 7 straight touchdowns. Like, I don't know what else you can do. I don't know how you blame that guy.
Downs, countless 2-point conversions. It's not just the touchdown. It's like we were on the edge. Robert Alford's like batted ball in the air. Like, that was a pick, dude. Like, I don't know what the F was going on there. Like, it was, yeah, man. We got scars as Falcons fans. We got scars. Lots of blown leads. Hopefully, we're onto greener pastures and MP9 takes us there. Unfortunately, I would have loved to see Matt Ryan have a Super Bowl, Julio get a Super Bowl, Roddy get a Super Bowl. It didn't happen. It is what it is. We got to move on and think about the next. But Jeff, the one thing I wanted to ask you, Julio had an sort of an unceremonious exit from Atlanta, and it starts with that Shannon Sharpe interview, or I would say like when he was on Undisputed and he kind of put Julio on a hot mic. Julio just didn't know they were alive, and pretty much after he implied that he wanted out of Atlanta live on Undisputed, we traded him shortly thereafter. Jeff, what happened towards the end of Julio's tenure in Atlanta?
I mean, can you blame the dude for wanting, like, he didn't want to go through a rebuild, like he didn't want to play for Arthur Smith. Like, you can't blame the guy for that. We didn't even fucking like him as fans. Like, people are always so mad at him, and even now that shit still comes up, right? Like, well, he wasn't true to Atlanta. No, at year 10 at that point, that dude had given every ounce of blood, sweat, and tears he had to this franchise, did everything he could to help them win. And then you go out and get a guy like Arthur Smith, like, who, in case you haven't figured it out, is just a complete jackass, right? Like, he's just a jerk to everybody. Like, and how many players have you heard come out and say, "Oh yeah, I want to go play for Arthur Smith. He's a great guy." Even when he was here, like nobody was like, "Oh yeah, we had his back." I mean, you heard players have Mike Smith's back. You had players have Dan Quinn's back. At no point in time did you ever hear a player have Arthur Smith's back.
Heck, they even have Ross back, man. Ross a better player coach than Smith was.
Yeah. So, like, I'm just like, he gave 10 years of everything he had to do this team. At that point, he's in his early 30s, trying to win. The Falcons clearly not trying to win. Let me go somewhere, and let me go somewhere where I can try to get a ring. And I'm not mad at that. It took him to a lot of 3 other teams after that. Like, this is a completely different day and age, right? Like, either guys are trying to go join up with other people and go win rings, or guys are going through they're playing musical chairs with teams to try to find one. Julio gave you 10 years, and he gave you the best everything he had. So I'm not even mad at him wanting to get out. There was clearly no direction with this franchise. Hiring Arthur Smith was a complete fucking joke, if we're being honest. There were a lot of other dudes who, and I don't have the list in front of me, that seemingly would have been a far better opportunity than Arthur Smith was. And so, yeah, I'm not mad at him. I'll never hold that against him. I think it's stupid that fans still want to bring that bullshit up. No, I'm not saying you, because like you go on and there's people who were saying it yesterday under his announcement, bringing that nonsense up. And so, look, that guy is a Falcon, will always be a Falcon. And I don't give a shit how the twilight of his career went. He gave us the best 10 years he had in this league. And it was very clear. If you look at years 11, 12, 13, 14, whatever it was, his body broke down. So the fact that we didn't have to watch that, I think is better for us as fans, because we get to remember the elite Julio, not the body broken down Julio.
Yeah, and we were just talking about trading up in the draft, and I remember 2011 draft night when we did that, when we made that trade with the Browns and we gave up a boatload of draft capital. Everybody was going crazy, thinking like, what are the Falcons doing? But it ended up paying off, because Julio Jones, again, 90% chance that this guy's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. So when you trade up for a person like that, you better hit. So hopefully, if we do that for Walker, he has a similar career to what Julio had in the red and black. But Jeff, I think this is a good segue into Matt Ryan's Hall of Fame case. Now, I listed stats for Julio Jones before I led into that segment, and basically all of the stats he had, 13,700 receiving yards, 914 receptions, whatever, all of them are at or above the average Hall of Fame candidate at the wide receiver position. Only one category out of the 5 that I listed, he's below the average, and that is receiving touchdowns. He has 66, and the average Hall of Fame wide receiver had 86. So I'm not going to really hold that too much against Julio, but let's go to Matt Ryan. Let's try this exercise with Matt Ryan too. So Matt Ryan had one first-team All-Pro. He had 4 Pro Bowls, 62,800 yards, 381 passing touchdowns, and 5,551 completions. His stats, passing yards, TDs, and completions just shoot through the roof when you compare it to the average Hall of Fame QB. Where he's lacking are the first-team All-Pros, the championships, obviously. I didn't list that out, but I mean, I think the average Hall of Fame quarterback has 2. And then the Pro Bowls. Matt Ryan has 4. The average Hall of Fame quarterback has 7. Now, Matt Ryan also came up in an era where Aaron Rodgers was in your conference. Drew Brees was in your conference. At one point, Russell Wilson, Cam Newton. There were a lot of good quarterbacks, and you alluded to this on a previous podcast. Jeff, I know Falcons fans, and we think that at some point he'll be, actually, I shouldn't say all Falcons fans, but, people in Atlanta probably believe that at some point this guy's going to become a Hall of Famer, right? But I don't know if the rest of the NFL world shares that belief. So what's your rebuttal against that?
Top 10 all-time in quarterback wins, despite only having a defense ranked in the top 25 one time. Okay, that's important. Fourth all-time in comebacks with 38. Okay, He's the all-time leader in 200 yards he had like 215 straight games with at least 200 yards. It's an NFL record. Fastest NFL quarterback, I think, to 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000, and 60,000 yards. Okay. I get it. He had 11 seasons of at least 4,000 yards or more. He has the 5th most completions in NFL history. He has the 5th most passing yards on the road in NFL history with more than 32,000. He's got more than 400 combined touchdowns in NFL history, passing, rushing, receiving. You look at this, his Super Bowl is one of the highest rated Super Bowl passer ratings of all time. His playoff passer ratings is one of the highest all time, if not the highest. Highest passer rating, highest passer rating in NFL history when you combine regular and postseason. Highest yards per average in NFL history in 2016. I set it at 9.3 for regular season. So you look at his list, and I get it, right? For me, the reason that the All Pros and the Pro Bowls don't matter to me, because he had Aaron Rodgers. He had Tom Brady. He had Peyton Manning. He had Eli Manning. And I bring up Eli Manning because he's in a bigger market, right? And when you look at some of these things, media matters, right? Media attention matters. Matt Ryan, yes, Atlanta is a top 8 market. It doesn't get the media coverage that they got in New York, that they got in LA, that even Green Bay got, right? Because it's the Packers. It's a blue blood NFL program, right? So you look at all of those things that Matt Ryan did in Atlanta, and you look at where he is all time in the NFL. And when you look at the quarterbacks that he had to compete with, the Drew Brees, all of those things, he was never going to get the media accolades because of who he played against. But his numbers speak for themselves. And if you look at numbers, if you take the name off of that and you put all of the numbers on paper and you take the name away, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Because there's no way you list out every accomplishment, every NFL record that he has. If you took his name away, you would induct that dude the first time around. And I feel like if Hall of Fame voters actually did that, he would get in first ballot, even with Brady in that same class. But there's a stigma attached to that name, and his name, unfortunately, is what's going to hold him back. But if you just looked at that blank resume and you didn't have a name attached to it, if you said, here's quarterback, here, the 5 quarterbacks that are eligible, here's A, B, C, D, and E. A and B are getting in. A is going to be Tom Brady. Matt Ryan is going to be B, regardless of who else is in that class. But again, because you're going to put his name and his picture attached to it, it's probably going to hold him back. But his accomplishments, I can't say they're second to none because they're second to a couple people, but his accomplishments are long, they are thorough, and they tell me he's one of the best to ever to ever pick up a football.
So a lot of people point to his skill position, which honestly throughout his career, we can't dispute it. Roddy White, TG, Julio, Freeman, Turner. He's had the skill position. What he hasn't had his entire career was a formidable defense. He had it maybe one time in 16 and one time in 17. Aside from that, I can't really remember a defense that didn't hold us back. An offensive line, he had it early in his career during the Claybo, Dahl, Mud Duck days, and then we rebuilt that in 2015 when we got 2016 when we got Alex Mack. Jake Matthews was coming to his own, so we started rebuilding that, and once he got the offensive line, he started playing well. But what a lot of people also forget too is he didn't really have the best offensive coordinators in the world until later in his career. He started off with Mike Mularkey, who by and large, he's a pretty conservative offensive play caller, not forward thinking or anything, not creative, like maybe how Sean Payton was, or another brilliant mind in the league. He was not a brilliant mind. He was probably just an above average offensive coordinator for his time. Then Dirk Cutter, probably the same thing, a B grade offensive coordinator. So Mularkey and Dirk Cutter were his offensive coordinators for a majority of his career. For 4 years, he had Kyle Shanahan and Sark. And in those 4 years, is where you got that first team all pro. He put up his best passing numbers, and you could say he matured into it too. He was playing at a crazy level too. So maybe Sark didn't really have too much to do with it. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan's a genius and, probably helped, elevate Matt Ryan's game too. But you have to also take all those things into consideration as well. If Matt Ryan was playing, had Sean Payton for 15 years, his career might have looked a lot different. He might have a lot, couple rings on his finger too. So all that stuff to me matters as well. And I don't think people talk about that.
So, and to bring that up, right? Like Aaron Rodgers had the same OC in Green Bay almost his entire career. Breeze had Peyton almost had obviously his entire career,
his whole career
in New Orleans, right?
In New Orleans, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
You look at Peyton Manning only had like with the Colts only had one or two. I think it was two offensive coordinators. Matt, there was like a 5-year stretch where he had 4 different OCs, right? So he's trying to learn this shit as we go along. But I think this also, to me, like we can talk about how he played with all these different dudes. Let me go through these names and let me ask you a question. Okay. And I want you to answer these. I want you to answer my questions, Andrew. Okay. What did Julio Jones accomplish outside of Matt Ryan?
His career pretty much just, a lot of injuries, maybe one good season with Tennessee, if that. He was injured in that season too.
Okay. How about Calvin Ridley?
He sort of lost his mind. So, it was hard. He went down the drain. I'm not trying to, I'm trying to be sensitive about that too, but
I'm just saying, like Matt Ryan to me, Matt Ryan, like when you look at these guys, the perception of Calvin Ridley being a 1 was because he had Matt Ryan. When
Julio Jones opening it up for him.
Okay. You look at Roddy White. Roddy White didn't have Matt Ryan for the first couple of years of his career. All of a sudden he gets it. Now he just completely shoots into the right. How about Harry Douglas? Harry Douglas led the Falcons in receiving yards, went and got a huge contract from Tennessee and did nothing after that. Right? Yeah. Kyle Pitts, 2021. Kyle Pitts led the Falcons in receiving yards. What has he done without Matt Ryan? Right?
Great point.
There's a lot to be made about the dudes. Like we can say how he was surrounded by all of his talent, but then when you look at this talent, what did they other than Tony Gonzalez, right, who was already a Hall of Famer when he got here? These guys accomplished nothing without Matt Ryan.
Like, one more for you, Jeff. One more that you're gonna like. What about Mohamed Sanu? The guy was a great 2 with Matt Ryan. And he played so freaking well. Don't forget that the Patriots traded us a 2nd-round pick for Mohamed Sanu. Don't forget about that.
He saved Taylor Gabriel's career. Like the list goes on and on of dudes that he gave careers to, he salvaged careers for, but nobody's going to take those things into account. But we're going to look at it and go, well, he was surrounded by all this talent. Are you sure about that? Are you sure we just didn't think that because they had Matt Ryan because he was that good? I just like you can make an argument both ways, but I feel like you have to look at the argument. If you're going to bring up one side, you have to be open-minded enough to look at the other as well.
So if our defense was just a little bit better in 2016, I'm just talking about we have one more maybe corner or one more pass rusher that could really like get after the quarterback. We win that Super Bowl. I don't care what anyone says. Like we just needed 1% more. And if you go back to 2012, Jeff, if you remember 2012, we played John Abraham the last game of the season and he sprained his freaking ankle and he wasn't 100% for the playoffs. So we're kind of playing with our best pass rusher down. We get through Seattle and we barely lose to San Francisco. If we just had the defenses, it might not just be the 2016 Super Bowl that we're missing. We might have won in 2012 as well.
So let's take a look real quick at, because I've got it here in front of me. You look at where we go. So these are our scoring defenses during his career, right? We'll start with his rookie year, move up. 16th, 19th, 6th in 2010, 17th, 10th in 2012, 32nd, 30th, 18th, 28th in the Super Bowl year. That's how elite Matt Ryan was. 20th, 29th, 26th, 22nd, 30th, 23rd.
Was there ever a top 10 year? I'm sorry if I missed it.
Yeah, so they had two of them. 2010 they were 6th, and 2012 they were 10th. And 2010, what happened? They went 13-3, won the NFC South. They lost to the Packers 21-48. What did the Packers go on and do in 2010?
Win the Super Bowl.
Right.
We would have beaten the Bears the next round, 100%.
100%.
That was ours. Yeah.
Yep, 100%. You look at 2012. You just mentioned Abraham going into the playoffs. That made a huge difference. But again, you gave Matt Ryan a top 10 defense. You had the best record in the NFC. Again, in 2012, you lost to you lost in the NFC title game. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
last second.
Right. And I think they actually blew a lead in that game, if I'm not mistaken.
17-0.
Yeah. So again, but of course, people are going to blame Matt Ryan for that. It is what it is. You spot your defense 17-0, especially a defense that was top 10 that year in scoring. You give them 17 points, you should win that fucking game 17-10 at worst case scenario. If we're looking at this, for Matt Ryan to finish top 10 all time in wins and have defense and have 12 of his 14 defenses finish 16th or worse, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 times his defense finished later than 20th in the league. That's incredible. Absolutely incredible.
And you know what's funny? The 2 times we had the top 10 defense, who was our coach? Smitty.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, people do not give this guy enough credit. They were quick to run him out of town after 2 bad seasons, but we didn't let Smitty evolve, go into the second stage of his career. That's the thing. I feel like we're so impatient as fans that you got to kind of take the bad years in. Even the Patriots, Belichick had maybe 2 or 3 seasons of, after Brady left, of rebuilding, but they didn't let the guy, the most winningest coach of all time, so countless amount of Super Bowls, they even run him out of town. It's crazy. You got to let them sort of come to their own and figure it out and help them rebuild. You can't just expect someone to rattle off 20 straight seasons the way Belichick did, winning, being in Super Bowl contention. So, Jeff, last topic though. What I saw a post, and I don't know if it was from the AJC reporter Orlando Ledbetter or whatever. I think he said that Kirk prefers to get released, and everyone's kind of like, no shit. There's no world that this guy gets released, right?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Why? If you want to see this fan base completely turn on you, release him. See what happens by cutting him and giving him the option to take $100 million from you, cost you several draft picks, fuck up your season, and then go play wherever he wants to go play. I promise you, you will lose whatever fan base or whatever part of this fan base thinks you walk on water, because there are parts of this fan base that think Terry Fontenot can do no wrong. They will turn on you. Under zero circumstances are they going to let this dude walk. I've been one of the few that has said they absolutely do believe that they're going, when they tell you they have no plans to get rid of him, that he can hold a fucking clipboard. That's what there's no reason for that to change. You've given the guy $100 million. He's cost you several draft picks. He screwed up your season last year. Hold the clipboard. And if you're not happy doing it, oh well, retire. And then we'll still hold fights for the next 10 years, and you'll never play it down anyway.
Hey, if someone paid me $100 million for 2 years to hold a clipboard, I'd be very happy.
Bro, I'll even get you water, right? What temperature do you want the water at? How much ice do you want in this thing? Give me $100 million over 2 years, and there's probably a whole lot I would not do for you.
The thing is, why would Kirk want to leave though? He wants to go to Cleveland and do what? If he gets wrecked in Cleveland, where they don't really have a supporting cast there for him to thrive, if he looks like crap again, he's done. He ain't getting nothing. But if he stays in Atlanta, and I'm not saying Michael Penix is going to get injured, but the guy does have an injury history. There's a good chance that he's going to have a game or two, and in a spot start with our offensive line and the weapons, right? he could look good and just pop off in one game, and that one game could be parlayed into a contract. If you're just thinking about it from a business standpoint, you finish 2025 maybe having 2 or 3 starts under your belt, and you had a full season to recover, you could probably get more than what Geno Smith and Sam Darnold got this year.
Oh, 100%. Absolute 100%. I think the Falcons here are going to play the long game, right? They're going to wait for somebody to get hurt or for somebody to need a quarterback, and then you can take, you can recover what he cost you, and you can make things work your way. I think teams really thought the Falcons were going to be desperate, right? Like I think there was a consensus among, and we all know there was among media members, right, that the Falcons were going to be desperate to get rid of him and they didn't want him on the roster and this, that, and the other. That's just simply not the case. The Falcons are intelligently playing the long ball here, or the long game here, and they're waiting for that layup for Birdie on 17 to go win the damn thing, not to give it away because the first 2 holes were bogeyed. Right. And so I can't blame him for that. I think it's a great move. And then ultimately, you have a guy, Michael Penix, who had a couple really bad injuries in college. And if that does happen early on in the season, you already have your backup plan here. And it's a guy that can win a game or two. So to me, there's no upside in releasing him. There's a lot of downside by getting rid of him just to get rid of him. Especially after you've paid him, and it's not going to change the contract situation, and it's not going to change the output of money.
You brought up a good point about the media going crazy over this. When the media doesn't get a heads up, when they're caught off guard, and you do not follow what they think you're doing, what they've been preaching, every media member, Falcons are going to release Kirk Cousins. That's all you heard in the offseason, right? When you go against these guys, you piss them off, and then all of these stories start circulating into the media. So it was more of their lack of understanding of how the contract works, how the offset works. Everyone's like, oh, March 17th, the $10 million roster bonus. Atlanta, no way is paying that. No one even knew that there was offset language in the contract, that it didn't even matter if that hit or not. That was not the date to look at. You catch them all off guard. They berate the Falcons for not releasing him. The one guy that actually kind of was in our corner in the media, which is unlikely, was Florio. Florio was the first one to point out there's offset language here. It seems like when everyone else goes left, he likes to go right a little bit too. So I don't think it's him like having an affinity for the Falcons, more him trying to, but he did have a valid take here, as opposed to last year where he thought that we were going to give the Minnesota Vikings our 1st-round pick for tampering with Kirk Cousins. That was a real thing that he put out there. You guys can go look that up. So last thing I'll end with, Jeff. So there's also talks about the Falcons paying more of Kirk Cousins' contract in a potential trade to sort of facilitate it, right? Maybe after the draft, after the 1st round of the draft, if the Browns don't draft a quarterback, then maybe the Browns will trade a pick. So I just wanted everybody to have this benchmark to sort of level set on the compensation here. Back I think 8 years ago, when the Browns traded for Brock Osweiler from the Texans, it was sort of a salary dump situation, except Osweiler couldn't play. So as part of the deal, the Browns got the Texans' 2nd-round pick. They swallowed about $16.7 million in cash for Osweiler's contract. So in essence, that's our benchmark. About 17 million bucks for a 2nd-round pick. If you sort of get that ratio, get that contract, $17 million, and you divide it against the cap back then, and then you multiply it against the cap now, it comes out to about 27 million. Well, guess what Kirk Cousins' salary is in 2025? It's exactly 27 million. So if the Falcons swallow the full amount and trade him to the Browns, I think we could expect something close to a 2nd-round pick. Now, if there's some, back and forth, like if they're taking 10 and maybe the team takes 15, whatever, then I think it'll be closer to a 3rd or 4th. But I don't think a 2nd-rounder, especially a later one, is completely off the table. So that's what I would expect. I don't think we'll get the 33rd overall pick, which I think is the Browns' current 2nd-round pick for Kirk. That's unrealistic. But if they somehow trade, they have the 67th overall pick in the 3rd round, if they trade that up to the second round, a little bit into the, low 60s, high 50s. I think that's a reasonable trade for Kirk Cousins if we swallow the entire contract.
Agreed.
So
completely agree.
We'll see what happens. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. This is the third episode of Flight Path. We're getting our wings under us, no pun intended. So again, at JMB_CU16. That's where you can find Jeff. You can find the guy going off on people on X during the week. Jeff and I have pretty grueling day jobs, but it's always fun to see Jeff go off on someone. I always get a good laugh when I'm answering emails, dealing with clients. Watch Jeff go off on someone. That's always entertaining. If you're into numbers and like nerdy stats, I'm probably the follow there at Andrew Duhan. If that's not your thing, just follow Jeff. Subscribe on our YouTube channel, Flight Path, and you can find us on Spotify now. We'll try to get on all the major platforms so you guys can consume our content however you want. But, as of right now, as of recording, we're at 58 subs. I love that. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Really, without you guys, this doesn't go. So really, we're always, anytime I see someone Falcons related respond to us on Twitter or whatever, it is an automatic follow for me. I apologize if I haven't done so already. Anytime I just see you're a Falcons fan, you guys will always have priority for us. If we end up popping one day, we will take you guys with us. This first 500, first 50, this means the world to us. Without you guys, this ain't going nowhere. You guys are literally on the plane ride with us. First class. You'll always have the first class seats, and hopefully we all take off together.